that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance.
This is the second part in my series about the modern mind. Please reference the first part because this video, is not so upbeat. Let's just be honest with what's about to come. Fear. We as a society, United States of America, 2022, are in the grips of fear. We have been conditioned this way our entire lives. It's been one thing after another. Watch my next video or my last video. Fear itself. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Our great leader once said this to us, FDR, who got us out of the Second World War. Perhaps going into the third, FDR is nowhere to be seen. And we might think, well, we have more to fear than fear itself, like bullets. Don't think too much about it. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Might not be an absolute truth, but it's pretty close. We're going into it in this video. Please reference my last video on the 5 half-truths, white lies you can tell yourself to overcome fear. This video is going through our very recent history to explain why we are so fearful. Also check in on the video, The Millennial Life of Chaos, which is either coming out very shortly or it just came out. I'm getting you used to the uncertainty of the world through the way I release my videos. Fear itself, it's not some hippy-dippy concept. We are actually sabotaging ourselves through constant fear. There's a helicopter going over my house. While this helicopter circles, please watch this video. These are affirmations you can use to overcome fear, to make you unstoppable.
I am fearless. Subconsciously, I run in my mind. I run away in my mind. But I'm fearless. I fear no possum. I fear no raccoon. I fear nothing.
No, I'm going to be serious from now. I'm going to be serious from now on. But definitely watch that video. And if you have watched that video, encourage others in the comments to watch that video as well, so that they too can overcome fear and be their greatest version. Would you please be serious? The country is collapsing on itself. I am going to be serious. I am going to be serious. Why do I say that fear is the biggest enemy right now? Well, let's just look at our recent history. What is happening to us? We didn't get hit by an asteroid. There was not a tsunami again. In fact, when there was a tsunami, that wasn't as bad as the self-inflicted wounds we have done. The problems we are seeing right now, they are not natural. They are man-made. And one of the motivations for us making these catastrophes, let's just say it. Note to new viewers, some of the social catastrophes we address on this channel are as follows: mass hysteria, the culture war, weaponized media, and mind viruses. One of the catalysts for these catastrophes that have recently befallen our country is fear. Fear. We're so afraid. Now, in the video, Millennial Life of Chaos, you see how our generation has had one thing after the other constantly coming at us, hitting us, knocking us down. So it's hard to feel secure in our hearts and therefore go on about our lives with a sense of security because random stuff keeps happening to us. However, that conditioning has made us so much more fearful that we are acting out of fear and therefore making it worse. So the obvious example right now is Ukraine. Putin has invaded Ukraine because he is fearful of losing power. He says he's fearful of biolabs and Nazis and all this stuff, but it seems he's afraid of losing power and losing influence. Fear. Now, that's one man's fear that mobilized an army. So now the people of Ukraine are not afraid of fear. They are afraid of missiles. I don't have all the answers. I'm just telling you what I've noticed. It's important to find the balance between caution and fear because obviously we must be cautious. We must save in case the bankers try to sabotage us again. We must look after our health in case the scientists release another coronavirus. That's caution. Remember that time the scientists released a coronavirus? It happened like 2 news cycles ago. I'm still like 10% mad about that. Back to fear. Now this is old hat. We've known about this forever. In fact, let me read to you something from the CIA's document of human manipulation. They just do this. Not only does the CIA do this, but they have a library online that you can go to and check out a lot of the wicked things they have done over the years. But this particular passage, I feel is more self-help. Threats and fear. The threat of coercion usually weakens or destroys resistance more effectively than coercion itself. The threat to inflict pain, for example, can trigger fears more damaging than the immediate sensation of pain. In fact, most people underestimate their capacity to withstand pain. The same principle holds for other fears. Sustained long enough, a strong fear of anything vague or unknown induces regression, whereas the materialization of the fear, the infliction of some form of punishment, is likely to come as a relief. The subject finds that he can hold out, and his resistance is strengthened. In general, direct physical brutality creates only resentment, hostility, and further defiance. Translation, people can handle more than they think they can handle, and the threat of something happening to them is more likely to get them to act as you want them to act. Better to manipulate them with the threat than the actual pain itself. Isn't that sweet? Isn't the CIA so sweet? What if the CIA wrote a Chicken Soup for the Soul? Would you buy the CIA's Chicken Soup for the Soul? I would buy the CIA's Chicken Soup for the Soul. Anyway, I said I was going to be serious. I am going to be serious. This video is seriously about how we are being manipulated to be more fearful. And we'll go over recent history. My last video or next video, depending on release, ended in 2016. It ended in 2016 because things really started to snowball after 2016. Now, if you had been paying attention, like I was unfortunately paying attention, I couldn't just be a happy child. I couldn't just be. I had to be paying attention to the world. If I could go back in time, I would have not paid attention to any of it. Why? What's the point? Anyway, for those of us who weren't paying attention, 2016 made you pay attention, because in 2016, the American people elected a clown man, the joke candidate. He was the joke candidate. Whether or not you see him as a clown man, he was wearing enough makeup to be a clown man. Beside the point, we elected Donald Trump, and we elected Donald Trump in part out of fear. Fear of what? Well, fear of losing status. Fear of things continuing to go as they had been going. Trump ran on the Make America Great Again, which means that we are going to hold on to traditional values. Conservatism. Conservatism just means conserving what you have. So you can be conservative if you want to hold on to what you have, any traditions that you have. That makes you conservative. Conserve, you see? And so he was trying to conserve traditional values by making America great again. This was the pitch. I'm not saying this is what he did. I'm not making any judgment call whatsoever. But people being attracted to him was in part out of fear of what the country was becoming. And what was the country becoming in 2016? Well, it was not so far as to where we are right now. People saw where we are right now and thought, well, I don't want that. I want something I recognize. They were afraid of the unknown. They were afraid of this new future. And come on, you don't get it? You don't get why people would be afraid that their life expectancy is going down? Yes, the life expectancy was going down in 2016. And that could be one of the reasons why Donald Trump won. There were real reasons. Things were not going well for everybody. Things were going well for the top 10%, for the people in the cities, the coastal elites. They were going very well for them. But other people were afraid, and they should be afraid. Fear is one of the reasons why Donald Trump won, because when people are afraid, they cling to security. And I'm sure you've noticed this, because I have noticed this, that people are more willing to trust somebody who's confident than to trust somebody who's competent, because that confidence kind of allays their own fears. Confidence man, a con man, they sell confidence. And so this is just one of those tricks that is in our brain, that when we see somebody so confident, we go along with them, we think they're a natural leader, and we don't know where they're leading us. They'd be leading us off a cliff. Well, 2016, the nation elected Donald Trump in part out of fear. Now, I'm not going to rehash the 2016 election. Bob Woodard wrote that book on Donald Trump's presidency called Fear of the Unknown, perhaps a justified fear of the unknown. And so, like the pendulum swinging, the American people elected Donald Trump. And then what happened? Trump derangement syndrome. So these people were afraid that these people would take over the country. And when these people took over the country, these people were afraid that these people would ruin the country. Both sides been ruining the country very successfully for many generations now. But 2016, everything went into overdrive. Trump derangement syndrome. And everything in this country came down to whether you like Donald Trump or whether you don't like Donald Trump. People became so fearful that they started to believe things that simply were not true and started to act in ways undermines all of our values. Holding Trump to different standards than they would hold other people. Okay, notice how no one cared about kids in cages on the southern border under Obama, and they don't care under Biden. For-profit migrant detention became enshrined in law under Bush, not under Trump. We did a whole series of videos about this, did a whole bunch of volunteer work, and nobody cared because it was happening under Obama. That's just the way it is. Being willing to do anything to undermine Donald Trump, who was the sitting president. Now, in the last video or the next video, we talk about how the Republicans would do anything to undermine Obama, and they did. And they ruined the country. I'm going to say ruined. They attempted to ruin the country because they were so afraid of what Obama might do or who Obama was. And no, Obama wasn't a left-wing socialist. He was a centrist whose main goal was to maintain the American empire, which he did. 2008 to 2016 Republicans were a dumb group of self-sabotaging brats, and now their party has been taken over by a clown man. Ha ha, the irony, ha! So their fear caused them to react this way to Obama. And Trump derangement syndrome caused people to act in ways that they wouldn't have normally. Everything got caught up in whether or not Donald Trump liked to do it. And because he liked to do it, because he was the great Satan, anything was justified in undermining Donald Trump. I will give one example, just one example. This last election, the 2020 election, the Hunter Biden laptop, we had the elite classes, we had the media conspiring to bury a legitimate story that Hunter Biden's laptop showed that he was selling access to his father for political favors. Now, normally, we haven't been normal in a while. Let's be perfectly honest here. We haven't been normal, respectable in a long time. But for our elites, for our media to conspire, for the tech elites at Twitter, et cetera, to conspire to bury a legitimate story, to hide the truth, to sway an election, there are no words. I can't even think of any words. And all I do is think of words. It's sad. Sad that people let themselves be overwhelmed so much by fear. Sad that people didn't really have values, because as soon as those values were threatened and as soon as they felt threatened, they just went out the window. The Hunter Biden laptop story shows how far Trump derangement syndrome went. Trump does not have to destroy the country if the country is going to destroy itself to keep itself from getting destroyed by Donald Trump. This is the derangement. These people went insane, and then it bled over into COVID. Donald Trump says this, we must do the opposite. Donald Trump wants us all to die. Do you remember the Trump body count or whatever? They blamed all these deaths on him. More deaths now under the new president, but how are you going to blame the president? The president wasn't messing around with bats in a lab. Don't blame the president for this. Well, yeah, he did. The only president we should not blame for this is Obama. The rest of them, yeah, maybe we can blame him a little. But he wasn't directly doing this. What did it matter what Trump said? We should have listened to the most reasonable voices. Instead, we let our fear get hold of us. We locked down. People locked down in their houses. They were afraid to talk to anybody. They were afraid of produce. They were afraid of the delivery boy. They were afraid of everything. They were afraid of their own shadow. COVID hyper started the fear. If the fear was on steroids before, I don't know what COVID did. Maybe it was zombie steroids. But now we all avoided people at first. They said, keep your distance. They said 6 feet, whatever. We did that at first. And then we realized, well, it's not exactly 6 feet. And if you don't have symptoms and this and this and that, but some people never got out of it. Some people are still living very hard in that COVID fear. And so what did greater damage? COVID or the fear of COVID? That's an honest question. That is an honest question I am asking you. What did greater damage to this nation and this world, COVID or the fear of COVID? Because what did lockdowns do? They increased mental illness, anxiety, depression. They bankrupted a lot of hardworking people, put businesses under. They benefited the billionaire class and took money from the rest of us because they got all this government money. They got all these loans. They got our money. Now they have our money. And we don't have our money because our money is worth less. So they have all of our money. And so we should legitimately be afraid of this. Should be like, oh my God, there was a shakeup and now we are in a much worse position. And I'm sorry, but our ruling class simply is not competent enough to get us out of this. Ooh, I started that sentence and I was like, oh, you should not finish this sentence. But I finished the sentence. We have to be honest with what our ruling class can do. And it seems to me that a lot of our ruling class are some of the most foolish people out there. So here we are. A lot of us are legitimately afraid because this is pulling back the curtain and we are seeing that the confidence that they had shown the people, don't worry, we can take care of it. We can lead this country. We're like, no, you can't. So I suppose if you were on a plane and there were no pilot, you could legitimately be fearful. And this brings us back to our affirmations. Check that video out.
Skydive. Pick out a parachute, not knowing if there's actually a parachute on your back. That's what you call fearless. You figure it out as you go.
And so those lockdowns caused a lot of damage. And it caused more fear because people are living in fear. They're living in fear of the virus, or they're living in fear of poverty. They're living in fear of losing their jobs. They're living in fear of giving up their rights. Now, this is kind of where I am because I understand that the ruling class can't be trusted. I mean, I was a history major. Of course, I understand you can't trust these people. My God, who's trusting these people? Not people who watch this channel. Regardless, this is where I'm living in fear. I'm like, okay, they're going to try to take even more of our rights. And this is not a fear based on nothing. This is a fear based on what they have tried to do over the past 20 years and what they have tried to do over the past 12 months. So I feel this is a legitimate fear, but you know what? Maybe fear is fear. I am not above being afraid. I just feel that my fears are based in reality. Ooh. Watch the other video if you have to feel better. I told you to watch the other video if you have to feel better. Don't come in this video and be like, wow, this is really heavy. That's why I started with the other video, okay? 5 lies to tell yourself to overcome fear. Okay. See, the cup says it's dangerous to go alone. Drink this. And it's full of alcohol. So, instant courage. I'm joking. It's not alcohol. This is coffee. But what if my trick to overcome fear was reading the CIA, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and drinking whiskey? Like, I mean, it works. It's like, this is like the sprint of overcoming fear. We need to do a marathon, so maybe not the best solution. Okay. Serious. We're being serious because this is a serious topic. This is serious. But Maya, you say, COVID was natural. That was not self-inflicted. That did not come from fear. Yeah? Really? Okay. There is a chance that COVID evolved naturally. There's a chance. Of course, there's a chance. I feel there is a much greater chance that COVID came out of a lab. Now, there are all kinds of conspiracy theories going around the internet. I'm not going to say I know for a fact what the motivation was. But it does seem that these scientists were doing research because they were afraid of a virus that might come out of nature. And so their fear of a virus that might come out of nature may have caused them to develop a virus that came out of a lab. This is fear. Fear causing fear causing fear. Well, fear causing death. Fear causing a virus, which causes death. At some point, it's no longer fear, like the Crucible, the witch trials. They were afraid of the devil. And so people physically hung these witches. They physically lit them on fire. It wasn't fear that was burning these women. It was fire. Nevertheless, it was the fear that motivated these people to set the fires. We'll go into it in a later video about the nature of mind viruses. Is fear a mind virus? Is fear a natural reaction that has been hijacked? We know the media feeds on fear. This is the media, this is fear. And it grows fat on fear. While the rest of us are timid and afraid, under masks, afraid to see our families. Because the media, feeding on fear. Regardless, perhaps COVID did have a natural origin. Or maybe it came out of a lab because people were afraid of a virus that did have a natural origin, a hypothetical virus that would have had a natural origin, but scientists beat them to it. The irony, the comedic irony. So here we are, 2022. We're at the tail end of all of that. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We're at the tail end of all of that. The Trump presidency, based in fear, replaced by Joe Biden, whom we elected because we were afraid of Donald Trump. Getting through the COVID virus, which also may have come from fear. A vaccine was developed. Some people too afraid to take it. Perhaps cautious. Caution important. No judgment, just saying what is. And in response, people who did take the vaccine were afraid of people who didn't take the vaccine. So this is another fear response that may rip the country apart. Now, luckily, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. So we can focus on something else. We can focus on an external enemy instead of an internal enemy, which, fingers crossed, it doesn't lead to World War III. But I think we were all a little concerned with the way the country was tearing itself apart up until January, and still kind of is. So we're not going to go into it right now, but these are all self-inflicted wounds. These are all fear responses. And this is happening because a certain percent of the population, maybe 30, check out the mass formation video, whatever percentage of the population is so afraid that all of their reasoning has been just shut off, completely shut off. And they're brainwashable. Yeah, they're brainwashable. And now we have the part in the middle, there's a part in the middle. There's the people who are brainwashed or brainwashable. There are people who you're not going to brainwash them no matter what. But there are people in the middle who are afraid and are going to go along with wherever the wind is blowing because they want to protect themselves. Also a fear response. So here we are. Psychic illnesses, self-inflicted wounds. Here we are as a nation suffering from all of these self-inflicted wounds. No comet fell from the sky. No earthquake broke California off. No enemy attacked our border. These are all self-inflicted wounds. We can't seem to get it together. I feel that the nation is like a meth head constantly picking at his wounds. There's nothing there, but they scratch and scratch and scratch and scratch and scratch anyway. Now, I use this analogy because I'm in Los Angeles and there's meth heads scratching and scratching and scratching all over the place. So, once again, fear. Fear. Do I have a solution for fear? I do not have a solution for fear. Fear is one of these things that has always snuck back into civilizations, into societies, and caused trouble. Not just the witch trials, which we talk about a lot, also the Red Scare, literally scare. It comes back over and over and over again. And what we can do is be able to identify it. This, I think, is our greatest power, is being able to identify when fear, irrational fear, is showing its head again, so that we can say, no, I recognize you. I will not be going along with this. I feel that this is what the internet can do for us, what information can do for us, what media can do for us. So do I have an immediate solution? No, I don't. But being able to recognize that what is going on right now are fear responses on top of fear responses on top of fear responses can actually be very helpful. Some important things to note, some very important things to note, is that the media feeds on fear, because fear is such a powerful emotion that we click on it. Fear and love, those are the most powerful emotions. Love actually has gotten us everything we have. So remember that. Love for our family, love for our people has gotten us just about everything we have. But fear can rip it apart and can destroy it, as we are seeing. The media feeds on fear. They're going to do what pays them, and that's just all there is to it. And we live in an era of omnipresent media, so here we are. Ugh. I will say this one thing about archetypes. So I'm going to get hippy-dippy for a second. We're going to discuss Jungian archetypes. Carl Jung, defined archetypes as this. Archetypes are patterns of instinctual behavior. So they don't have to be, something floating in the air, some black mask. It's just how we behave naturally. So these archetypes, as they are patterns of instinctual behavior. So fear is a pattern of instinctual behavior. Now, why do I say this? Remember this. There is no lunacy people under the domination of an archetype will not fall prey to. He goes on to say, if 30 years ago anyone had dared to predict that our psychological development was tending towards a revival of the medieval persecutions of the Jews, that Europe would again tremble before the Roman fasces and the tramps of legions, that people would once again give the Roman salute as 2,000 years ago, and that instead of the Christian cross, an archaic swastika would lure onwards millions of warriors ready for death, why, that man would have been hooted as a mystical fool. Wow. Yeah. There is no lunacy people under the domination of an archetype will not fall a prey to. Ooh. I hope that doesn't foreshadow anything. It's 2022. I'm already here. Like, come on. You let me know in the comments, what are you afraid of? Personally, my biggest fear is that most of society seems to have lost its ever-loving mind. And we know fear doesn't kill you, bullets kill you. So these people under the sway of fear, may kill you with bullets. So here I am like, oh, all y'all crazy. So that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is everyone's lost their mind and everyone's lost sense of themselves. What's your biggest fear? How useful do you think fear is? And when does caution become fear? We know fear is useful, but fear seems to be on steroids right now and seems to be holding a lot of the population under its spell. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? You let me know. Subscribe.